The beginning of Perek. We are Daf Mem Zayin Amid Aleph 47a, the beginning of the chapter, right at the top. B'tziu loyas akaf. So they would take out from the vessel storeroom, they would bring out for him the kaf, a spoon or a bowl, vesamachka, and a pan. So they put on they took out the kaf, which is like a bowl or literally a palm, so it's a bowl, vesamachta, and a pan, and chafan melechafnav, he would take two palms full of the spice from the bowl of spice. V'nasa etech hakaf hagadol l'fi godloi v'akadloi kod. He would take it and take two palmfuls, regardless of how big he was. A big person according to how big he was, a small person according to how small he was. That's how much he would take, two palms full, and then he would put it into the bowl, the kaf. The kaf hoisim midasei, and this was its measure. The Gemara is going to explain what that means. Natal asamachta b'yaminoi v'sakaf b'smai, and he would take the pan, which had the coals in it, in his right hand, and the kaf, the bowl, which had the incense, the ketoras, in his left hand, and in this way he would bring it up and bring it into the Kodesh Kodashim. So this is the Mishnah, the next step where he finally gets the incense and the coals and how he would take it. Machta, so the pan, Hatani lane, so we already learned, not also Machta Valularish Mizbeach. It already said in the previous Mishnah that he had a pan. Why is there another pan being brought out from the storage room? It already said in the previous Mishnah that he had a pan and he went up onto the Mizbeach and took a pan of coals and brought it down. So why is there now all of a sudden we say, they brought out a pan for him from the room, the chamber that had the vessels? It already said that he had this pan. What's this pan for? Asa machta the gechol. You're right. That was a pan for the coals. But over here we're talking about a different pan. The pan of the coals he already had, and he went up on the mizbeach and he took the coals down. That's correct. There's another pan. You know what this pan is? Machta the ketoras. It's a pan that will hold the ketoras, the incense, from which he's going to take two palms full. He needs a large amount of incense that he could stick his hands into and take two full palms. So that's this pan. The Tanya, as I think we learned in the Brisa, Tziloi Kaf Reikon, they would bring out for him the bowl, the Kaf Reikon, empty, Milishkas Akelim, from the chamber where the vessels were stored. Umachta the Gusha Shadadek. And they bring out a pan, but the pan they had already filled with ketoras, incense, and it was a heaping pile of ketoras on this pan. Milishkas Beis Avtinas, from the house, the chamber of the house of Avtinas, which we saw earlier was the family that built that made the ketoras. Chafan Melechafnav. And then it says that he put in he put in his palms, and he would take from the two palms, the two palmfuls from this big large heaping pile of incense. Each person according to how big their hands were. And this was its measure. So we see in this brisa that the pan was a pan that they would bring out full of incense for the spices, and then he would take the palms. So kaf b'yom kippurim lama. So the Gemara now asks the palm. What do we need the kaf, this vessel that's like a bowl called a palm? Why do we need that for? Why do we need a vessel? Why not take it into his hands and just bring it into the Beis into the Kodesh HaKodashim while it's in his hands? The Torah, after all, tells us, as we're about to see, that the mitzvah is to have the Kohen Gadol will take his two palms, full palmfuls, and take from the spice and bring it into Kodesh HaKodashim. So what do I need that pan for? Why do I need a bowl? Why do I need him afterwards to then put it into a bowl? Why do I need this bowl? The Torah says his full palmfuls, his full hands. That's what he should bring. So the pasuk of the Torah says he will take a pan full of coals, which we saw before Hashem, the outer mizbeach, as we saw the previous days, and 2 palms full of ketara samim daka, the incense spices that have been ground down very well. He'll bring it in front of the paruchas. So why the pan? Why is he putting it into a bowl? After all, the Torah says he'll take 2 handsful and bring it in. The Gemara says, yeah, because it's impossible to do it as in the simple reading of the verse that he brings it in while holding 2 handsful of incense, of spices. What should he do? Na'ayil, v'hadar na'ayil. You want him to go into the Holy of Holies with the incense and then put it down somewhere, and then go in with the coals and put it down and somewhere, and then put them together, or vice versa. Go in with the coals, put them down, and then go in with the coals, put it down, and then go in with this 2 handsful of spice and put it down. No, the Torah clearly indicates that he will take these 2 items and come in at once. Not that he would go in once with 1 item, go back out, bring the next one in. As I read it to you, it says he will take the pan full of coals and the 2 hands full of spice, and he will come in the hevi besa parochas, and he'll bring it in inside the parochas, the curtain. So clearly, the Torah is saying that he will go in at a single time, carrying them both. Okay, so he needs to carry a pan full of coals and 2 hands full of spice. How's he going to do that if he needs to carry that all at once? Right? Coals are hot, spice is pretty powdery, right? How's he going to carry 2 hands full of that and the coals to get at once?
They put the 2 handfuls in a bowl and carry the bowl.
That's why we have a bowl. The Gemara says, why didn't you do it without a bowl? Just take it in the hands.
Okay, well now you know why.
And so the Gemara says, because what's he supposed to do? How is he going to do it? And if you're going to say, you know what, take the incense in his 2 palms, right? V'nachte lamachta Allah, and then take the pan of coals and put it on top of that, and he'll hold it that way. V'liyayil, and he'll go in. Yeah, once he's inside the Holy of Holies, what's he supposed to do? How's he going to get the coals down to put the incense, which are now beneath it, on it. Nishkele b'shine v'nachtil machtil. So maybe he'll bite the pan that had the shovel that has the coals in it, and with his teeth he'll put it down on the floor, and then he'll put the incense from his palms on top of it. So anyone says, yeah, that's inappropriate. That you wouldn't do that in front of a king, a human king. Walking into the king, bringing in his breakfast. You have his bowl of cereal on top of the bread in your hands, and then you bite the bowl to put it down on his table, so that not going to go over so well. It has to be appropriate. It has to be derech kavod. Before the King of Kings, the Holy One, blessed be, al achas kama v'kama, for sure, right? How much more so you should not do it this way. Hilkach l'yefshar, therefore there's no other way of doing it. Kibbutz l'yefshar, there's no other way of doing it. Of dinan kadash k'chav. So that clearly is not a way. So we looked elsewhere in the Torah to find where there was incense and how the incense was done. And we found by the Nesiim, where it says that they brought a ketores also. They brought incense, but there the incense was in a kaf. It was in a bowl, kaf achas malei ketores, a bowl full of incense. So say, okay, so we see when the Torah says to bring incense, we already have another place where the taking of the incense can be learned to be inside a bowl. Fine. So we know that there's already a pan full of ash. Of coal taken from the mizbeach. Then a bowl brought out and a pan full of incense. He takes it 2 palms, takes it from the incense and puts it in, and puts it into the bowl. And from the bowl, and he brings both the bowl and the pan into the holy place. He takes the pan full of coals in his right hand and the incense in his left hand, and he brings it into the holy place. And the Gemara says, wait, he's supposed to do all the avodah. A kohen is supposed to do the avodah with his right hand, unless not possible. Then he's going to do it with his left hand. So, what's the main part of this? The coals or the incense? The coals or the spice? The spices. Right? That's the samim daka. This is the spices that he has to put onto the coals. The coals are simply the instrument. And he's taking the coals in his right hand and the spices in the left hand. Doesn't make sense. Yitziva ba'ara v'gior b'shmei shmaya. The homeowner, the person who lives here is on the ground, and the guest is in the heavens. That, in other words, it's a euphemism that they would say that when things are backwards, and the homeowner is down on the ground, then the guest is flying high. It should be the other way around. In other words, you should have the right hand carrying the samim, the spices, and the left hand carrying the coal. And what it says, the reason is zoom meruba and zoom letters. The coals are a lot and heavier, and so he needs to use his right hand for that. And the left hand is the spice. The spice are less and not as heavy, and so he uses that the left hand. So it's a practical thing. And even if you could tell, well, actually sometimes the Kohen Gadol would have very large hands, and since it goes by each Kohen Gadol's palm size, so 2 palms of one Kohen Gadol may actually be a lot, and it may actually be a lot of spice, like there's a lot of coal. And indeed that happened with the story of Rabbi Yishmael, the son of Kimchis. So that's reason. Nevertheless, since generally the coals are heavier, therefore it's always done in the right hand. Gemara now has another reason, and also the coals are hot. You need to be able to control that and manage that. The spices, if you have to, if it's wobbly and you have to hold it closer to the bowl itself, okay, so nothing's going to happen. right? So if you can't handle the handle and you need to hold the bowl, you could do that with the spices. You can't do that with the coals. And so the coals have to be in your dominant, strong hand. Amar Alav, now that we mentioned Rabbi Shmuel ben Kimchas, it said, Amar Alav al Rabbi Shmuel ben Kimchas shoyachefin arba'as kavim b'mloi chofno. He would take 4 kav of spice in his full palms. That's a lot. In other words, he had very large hands and had got a lot of spice in these 2 full handfuls. V'omer, and he would say, Kol hanashim zordu v'zeredim al lagat. All women took this spice, ate this spice zered when they were pregnant in order for their children to be healthy and great. But my mother's spice, that was more successful. One of them went up all the way to the roof. Hikadami ba'arsa, and some say in that it was not zered spice or food. It was the arsa, which is also a porridge. In a way, he was very large and successful. The Rabbi Bar Yonis, and like Rabbi Yonis and the Amar Rabbi Yonis and Rabbi Yechiel, arsan yafel. This food arsa is good for a sick person, and since the pregnant woman was feeling ill, she had a lot of this, and he became strong. And some say with semen, meaning that it was effective, so that the choicest of the sperm was implanted. The Rabbi Abo, Rabbi Bo asked a contradiction that says, "Siv batazreini chayla melchama," and it says that batazreini, but it's written in Shmuel Beis. It's written, "You Hashem, help me for war," but it's written like Zera, which is "You seed me for war." Siv azreini chayla melchama, the one who girds me with strength for melchama, for war. So this is David HaMelech saying that the wording is slightly different. David says before, Hashem Ribono Shel Olam, Master of the universe, Zirisani v'ziraztani. You both implanted me and strengthened me to be diligent, to be able to do what I do. So both of these, so to over here, with Rabbi Shmuel ben Kimchas, he was from birth and beyond, and he was strengthened to become this strong and large person for the work he did, for being Kollel. Amar Alav Shmuel ben Kimchas. It is said about Shmuel ben Kimchas, Hamachas, that it occurred once. That Siper Dvarim im Arav Yachad B'Shuk, that one Yom Kippur, he had a conversation with an Arab out in the marketplace outside of the Beis Hamikdash. Now, normally it would stay away. Whatever happened needed to happen, even though it was Yom Kippur. And so he stepped out of the Beis Hamikdash to talk to this to this Arab that was there. And he spit by mistake as he was speaking. The Arab, some of his spittle came upon the garments of the Kohen Gadol, making him invalid to do the avodah. And his brother Yesheva took over and became the Kohen Gadol for that Yom Kippur, for that day. Their mother saw 2 Kahanim Gedolim do the service on the same day. Yom Kippur, one Yom Kippur, she had 2 sons that did combine the avodah, the service. Because another story they say about Shmuel ben Kimchas, Hamachas, another time, he walked out to speak with hegemon is a Latin word for a type of minister. They went out to speak with one of them, as they again were causing trouble and needed to speak with them. Beshuk in the marketplace in the opening before the Krut Beis Hamikdash. And again, as they spoke, they spit upon his garment, so it invalidated Rabbi Shmuel. And in his place, his brother Yosef came in and did the service that Yom Kippur. And his mother again on one Yom Kippur saw two of her sons become Kohen Gadol. Tanarban and the Brisa taught actually she had 7 sons who became Kohen Gadol. They all served as high priests and Kohen Gadol. Amru la Chachamim, the Chachamim said to her, Ma'asis shezachis lakach. Can you think of something that you did special that on account of that you merited to have such great children, 7 children serve as Kohen Gadol? Amra lehem miyamai leiro kares basi kalei sa'ari. So yeah, I'm very careful to cover my hair always, even at home. Not only when I went out into the marketplace, not only when I went out to shul, but even when I was at home, I would cover my hair. Even the walls of my house did not see these strands of my hair. Right? So Amrullah, Harba Asukir. So they said to her, yeah, many women do that. And Zulay Ha'ilu, and that didn't help them have good children. So if you think that it's because of that, many people, that's not such a special thing because many people do that. And still, that's not it. So she thought it was on account of that. The Chachamim told her, yeah, we don't think that's it. Okay. Tanarabban. Yeah, it's interesting. Usually when you ask somebody like, so to what do you attribute your long life or whatever, and they give you an answer, you say, oh, okay. And they say, like, yeah, that's not. That's not. Tanarabban. Bekumtzoi shalayasa midol lekemitz. Bekumtzoi shalayasa midol lekemitz. It says in the Torah that the way you take from the mincha a handful, it doesn't give a measure. It doesn't say a set measure. Rather, it says by his palmful. Kaimitz. Don't make a measure for the kaimitz. Don't make an estimate and say, okay, let's take 10 kahanim or 100 kahanim. Let them each do a kaimitz, measure what the average is, and put it in. Right? And that's going to become the kaimitz. No, we're not going to do that. Okay, so we said in regards to the kaimitz that you don't do a measure. It has to be each individual kain's hand. Well, what about the Kohen Gadol taking 2 palms full? Chafna. Do we also say that you can't do a measure, or do we say you can do a measure? There it says in his kaimitz, and it has to be specific. It doesn't say in his palms. Rather, it just says full palms. Yeah, his full palms. So perhaps full palms of the incense spice, and that's been finely ground. We saw finer than fine. So perhaps, like maybe in such a case, you do not require actual palms of the Kohen Gadol. Maybe it can be turned into a measure. Just like by kaimitz, it says his full kaimitz, his full palm, and by here it says malay chafnov, his full palms, open palms. So perhaps we need to learn one from the other, just like over there. It must actually be his handful, and you cannot just make a measure out of it. So to the 2 palms of the Kohen Gadol also must be actual and not a measure made of it. Tashema. So we'll come and prove that. It says in our Mishnah, and so was its measure, meaning regardless of how large his hands were or small, so was his measure. Where did you say that if he wants to make a measuring, this was its measure, And once you did it, you can actually make a measuring cup, a device, a vessel to measure that, and that's going to be valid. It doesn't have to be actually his size. Like, no, that's not what it is. And this was the measure that he would do again inside. So as basically he would he'd have a pan full of spice, take his palms and take palms full. Then he would put that into a vessel, a bowl. Now he'd take that bowl in together with the coals, and he would then have to take it out of that vessel back into his palms, because he couldn't take the vessel and put it on the coals, because from his hands, he has to put it on the coals to make the incense. So he would have to then take it back out of that bowl into his palms, and we'll see in the Gemara soon how he did that, and then he would have to put that on the coals in the basic dish.
That's also good photograph.
Of course. Is it Polaroid or is it digital?
I've got the cheap edition side of the
Which means you just push the bowl over the coals and you get the incense on it that way. So
Well, we will see.
That's where he uses his teeth.
Well, he doesn't use his teeth. Why? He would need to use his teeth to bring it in. What's Steindel's picture about?
Pouring it back into his hands.
He poured it back into his hands?
I mean, he does pouring it back, he's pouring it into the first place.
Oh, yeah, that's the pouring back into his hands. Yeah. All right. We would have to take the vessel. We're not up to that yet. Steindel's, of course, is ahead of the game. All right. So what it means is that he's that he takes 2 palms full, right? When he originally gets it, and then when he's back in the Beis Hamikdash, in the Kodesh HaKodashim, in the Holy of Holies, he has to then pour it back into his palms from the bowl, back into his palms, and through his hands, he will put it directly onto the fire. The Gemara says, "Dilma she'im ratza lasas mida oiseh, inami shaliachsav shaliaseh." That if he wants, he can make his own measure, or so that it shouldn't be any more or any less. So maybe that's what it means. So there's no proof here either way. You can't prove that the meaning is that he has to put it back into his palms, because maybe it means kachli midosa, this is its measure, means that he's allowed to make a vessel that's an exact measure, or maybe the other way around. Maybe it doesn't mean that you're allowed to make a vessel. Maybe it means that he has to put it back into the bowl. Either way, from his bowl into his hands. Either way, there's no proof from our text. So this text is not proof. So turn around on it. Malay comes. It says in a brisa that when the pasuk says his full palm, closed palm, kaimetz, yachol mavuratz. Perhaps it's also okay if it's bubbling out. Mavuratz is sort of running out. So you take a full palms full, but also some of it is coming out between his fingers and the sides. It has to be inside inside his kaimetz. So it can't be sticking out. Perhaps it can't even be at the tips of his fingers, right? And so there would have to be that it is only inside the space between his fingers and his palm, but it cannot be inside even by the tips of his fingers. No, it has to be full. The kaimetz has to be full. So it can't be coming out of the kaimetz, but what's in the kaimetz has to be that it is full all the way to the tips of his fingers. As people grab with a full hand. Okay, so how does he do this? He takes the 3 fingers to hover and cover over his palm. The kaimetz, and this is the way he would gather it in. So they would have to stretch their muscles and practice to be able to get the 3 fingers all the way to the edge of their palm, fill it, and that way they would fill as much as they could, and that's what it was. That's the end of Mem Zayin of Aleph. Go to Mem Zayin on the base. And in the types of mincha which had fried or baked bread prior, so it wasn't just flour that he was taking, but it actually had pre-baked or pre-fried bread, and then they would regrind that. It was bread crumbs as opposed to flour, and there it's really even harder because flour is very fine and it's thinner. Bread that's been fried or baked is thicker and coarser and harsher. So the way to keep it everything in, because it could be protruding from the sides, so he would have to wipe with his thumb and wipe with his pinky while keeping the kamitza correct to get these parts sticking out. So meichek begoidloi milamala, he would sweep from above with his thumb and below with his pinky. Ubetzbai katana milamata, with the small finger on the lower side. V'zu him avoda kasher shebamikdash, and this is a difficult avoda in the Beis Hamikdash. So the Gemara says, Zuhi, this is the most difficult. Vesuloi, there isn't a more difficult, but Ika Malika. What about Malika, which is the way they would pop off the head of the bird carbon from the back of the neck in one with the Kohen's nail in one swoop. Veika Chafina. There's also the Chafina that the Kohen has to do with 2 palms, take the incense and get it into a bowl, and then take it out of the bowl, back into his hand. Yeah, I didn't mean it's the most difficult, but this is a difficult avodah, meaning it's of the more difficult avodas in the Beis Hamikdash. Amar Rabbi Yechon. So Rabbi Yechon said, "Bayer Rabbi Yeshua ben Uziah." Rabbi Yeshua ben Uziah asked, well, okay, so we said what's sticking out by a kamitz on the side of the fingers, and what's sticking out and what's above the fingers, between the fingers, above, has to be wiped off. That it can't be there, right? Only what's at your tips and beneath the fingers. But what about what's actually between the fingers of the kohen, not protruding outside because that's above, but in between the fingers itself? Bein habinim shemalaikum tzanau. Is that count as a part of the full kometz and is included or excluded? Amar of Papa the Gavai the Vadi kometz said no. That what's inside you shouldn't ask about. That's inside. It's covered. That's a part of the baroy the Vadi shirayim. However, whatever is outside, you don't have to ask about because that's obviously outside. So he said, really no question. What's covered, what's inside between the fingers, that's a part of the palm. And what's outside of the fingers, that for sure, that's outside and it needs to be cleaned off, that's leftovers. So what's the question? In between the fingers. My Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Hada Pasha Yeshua ben Azar, Rabbi Yeshua ben Azar said, Beinim Safik Ninu. It's a doubt. So if there's anything between the fingers, it's a matter of doubt. And heichi of it. So what should you do? Amar Chanina maktir kometz l'chudei techila v'hada bein avinim. He has to take that off. First, he takes just the kometz up, and then he takes this also and adds to it. The Yom is bein avinim a ratio because if you're going to take the bits from the finger first, the l'sharaim nenu, maybe they're the leftovers. V'hava l'sharaim shechaser ben kamitza l'ktorah. And the shirayim can't be missing between the kamitza and aktarah. We saw this before. The halacha of the kometz is that the kohen has to take the kometz and put it into a bowl, and from a bowl into the mizbeach, and burn it. And it must be done while nothing is missing from what remained in the bowl, which is called a shirai. So you had a bowl of meal, right? Let's say flour, with some oil, mix it in, great. And then he took a full kamitza, put it into a vessel that sanctified it, and then we bring it up on the mizbeach and burn it. That must be done while the remainder is all still intact. So if what's between the finger itself, not in the palm and not outside the palm, what's in the finger, in between the finger itself, counts as shirayim, as leftovers, and really needs to go back to the bowl. If he's going to burn that on the mizbeach first, then the bowl is missing some of its leftovers. It's not going to be a valid mincha. Then, because as we said, the mincha has to have all the leftovers remaining with it. So he can't burn that first. So first what he's going to do is, so he's going to take this palmful, put it in a bowl, and it's going to look like a palm, right? That's what happens when you take oily flour, right? So it sort of sticks together and takes the shape of your hand, and it's going to look like it's going to have those palms, and whatever stays between the palms. So you put that in a vessel, and you take those little bits off, and you put it into a vessel separate. Take the koimitz, put that on the mizbeach to burn, and then you take these bits that were from between the fingers, and then, well, not between these two fingers, but these two fingers, and then you're going to be able to, and then you're going to put that on separate. V'amar, and the Brisa taught, shirayim shechazim mitzvah laktorah a maktirna le'nitzakayim. If the remainder in the bowl, the shirayim, is missing some between the kamitza and the actual burning of it on the mizbeach, you can't bring it onto the mizbeach because the carbon is missing some. So the Gemara says, if that's the case, hashtanami ikrikan. If so, we should read about this. Anything that once there's a remainder, you're not allowed to put on the mizbeach. So the other way around is also a problem. If this is a part of the remainder, and some of it was already, the proper amount was already put on the mizbeach, then you're not allowed to burn it. Because kol shemimenu li'ishim harei bal taktiru. That anything that was already taken, its part was taken, and put on the mizbeach already, the rest of it may not be burnt on the mizbeach. This is supposed to be eaten by the kahanim. It's a leftovers. It's shirayim, and once the part that was supposed to was taken on the mizbeach, harei bal taktiru. You're not allowed to burn it up because it says, as Rashi brings over in the pasuk, lo yisaktir mimeni ishal Hashem. Don't burn up something that was already placed on the mizbeach. You're right. He's not allowed to bring the leftovers as a korban, but he may bring it as fuel. And so this is what he does. He has the little leftovers that are between the fingers, takes it out, puts it in its own bowl. Takes the ketores and properly puts it on the mizbeach. It burns. Then he takes these little bits and he brings it up conditionally. So, well, if this is a part of the komitz, I'm bringing up the remainder of the komitz. And if it's not supposed to be the komitz, it's really the part of the leftovers in the bowl, it's the shirayim, and I'm not allowed to bring it on the fire as a korban. You know what? I'm not intending this as a korban. It's simply fuel. It's like wood. All right, I'm just bringing it up as fuel for the fire. To the Rabbi Eliezer, and we find another time when we have this idea that there's a korban that has to be brought, and you're not sure whether or not you're allowed to bring it. So you bring it up and you make this condition, and you say, well, if it's supposed to go to the mizbeach, all right, so I'm bringing it as a mizbeach, as a korban. If it's not supposed to, so then I'm just putting it on the fire as fuel for the fire, just like I put on wood. I'm putting this on. So we learned, Rabbi Lezer says, this is about a chatas offering, where only part of the offering goes on the mizbeach, and the other parts are supposed to be left, and the kahanim are going to eat. So this is the same rule that we just said, Now, once the part that goes on the Mizbeach, the rest is not allowed to go on the Mizbeach. So that day was a busy day in the Beis HaMikdash, and somebody came and brought his chatas offering, his sin offering. So the parts that go on the Mizbeach went on the Mizbeach. The rest over here on the table meant to be cooked and eaten by the Kahana. At the same time, another Kohen is busy with someone having brought an Oila offering, which the entire thing goes on the Mizbeach. And now that person put it on the same table. So now you have parts right here on the table, like which one's yours, which one's mine. Right? At this point, they look alike. Right? They're just a brisket and some lamb chops or whatever. Right? You just have the parts right there on the table. It says which one's the chatas, which one's the other. We don't know. So you can't put the chatas on the mizbech anymore because b'bal taktiru. We just said when the proper parts already went on the mizbech, the remainder may not go on the mizbech. But the oila entirely has to go on the mizbech. So it all has to go on the mizbech because maybe it's oila, but I'm not allowed to put the chatas on. So what do? So it says, what's the reason you can't put it on the mizbech? Because it says, you can't put it up as an incense offering, as a korban. So what you could do is you could bring it up for eitzim. You can use it as fuel. So that's what Rabbi Eliezer's idea is. You take all of it and you say the part that's an oila I'm bringing as a korban, and the part that's a chatas I'm putting it up as fuel. Fuel doesn't have to be wood. The fuel can be fats and parts, and that's what it's going to be. The Gemara says that's cool. Well, Rabbi Eliezer that says that. Hanichal Rabbi Eliezer, but the Rabbanim disagree with him there. What are you going to say? Amarav Mari the Kamtzi Shmeini. That you know what? Oh, you know who has to do a kaimetz? A Kohen Gadol who is a plump, and his fingers don't have gaps between them, and so no meal, no flour is going to go there because you're right. Well, if you're going to get into that, you're going to run into a question of the meal between the mincha between the fingers. Is it part of the bowl or is it part of what goes on the mizbeach? So it says So according to Rabbi Lez, also we're going to have to say that the proper way to do it is to have a kohen who has no gaps between their fingers, who's chubby fingers, in order to do the kmitza. Okay, we'll stop there, and the rest will